God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. We're on the eve of President Donald Trump's first State of the Union address, so I'm sure there will be a video on that coming soon. Make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss that video. But before we get to talk about that, we of course have to make it to tomorrow, and that means we're going to be talking about something else today. And the title of this video is something about political tensions escalating because the Nunes memo has made it to the final step before it is released to the public. And this has caused the Democrats and the media to somewhat melt down. Mostly Democrats in Congress and the leadership. As you're going to see, Chris Cuomo actually does a random act of journalism on his show when he interviewed Nancy Pelosi, so stay tuned for that. One thing that I do want to point out before I get into anything else is that the memo has been reviewed by at least 2 FBI individuals, and according to Chris Cuomo, when we get to that video, Donald Trump's head of the FBI has reviewed the memo, and none of these FBI agents have said, don't release this memo. In fact, the 2 FBI officials that reviewed the surveillance memo, according to Fox News, were not able to point out any factual inaccuracies. So, not only do we now have people verifying that the document is not false. Well, I guess, this would be, those are the wrong words. This isn't verifiably true, but it hasn't been pointed out as verifiably false. So as of this moment in time, there's no proof to any of the claims in the memo. Now, we haven't seen any of the claims in the memo to have anybody deliver proof of these claims. So this memo, I just want to point out, could be in the same boat as the Russia claims. However, we're still in the early stages. Nobody has even seen the claims in the memo. So for me right now to say we don't have proof that anything in the memo is true would have been like somebody saying before Trump had been elected that we had no proof that we had no proof that Trump hadn't colluded with the Russians. So as of this moment, we have no proof that the Nunes memo is false, but that would be like saying before Trump had been elected in October of 2016 that there was no proof that Trump hadn't colluded with Russians to win the election. Just to make perfectly clear where we're at right now with this memo. So, allegedly, the memo is a transparency document, and it details abuses by a government agency in the investigation of a political opponent of the previous administration. And I'm going to show you who the side of this issue is that wants to suppress a transparency measure. Basically, there's a side of this political debate that wants to be more transparent, and there's a side of this political debate that wants to be less transparent. And I'm going to show you exactly who the people are that want to be less transparent, and by process of elimination, you'll be able to figure out the people that want to be more transparent. So, first of all, against transparency, number 1, we have Adam Schiff. He's the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, and he held a press conference where he talked about how dangerous it would be to release this memo and how his feelings were coming out of the House Intelligence Committee meeting today.
In this committee, where for the first time in the 10 years or so that I've been on the committee, there was a vote to politicize the declassification process of intelligence and potentially compromise sources and methods. I made a...
The first thing I want to point out here is that he's saying that someone has politicized the declassification. I'm so sorry. This is highly unprofessional of me, but if you look to the right side of your screen at this exact moment, I don't know why, but the face of the woman to the right and to the front is hysterical in this very moment. I'm sorry that I let that interrupt my comments, but I just had to I just had to laugh at that. Okay, moving on. So, Adam Schiff is angry that Devin Nunes and the Republicans are quote-unquote politicizing the declassification process. Now, in order for there to be a politicization of the process, there must be two sides. And of course, as I've pointed out, that's exactly what's going on here. There's a side for more government transparency, and there's a side for less government transparency. And Adam Schiff, by saying that this is a politicized issue, is placing himself on the opposite of the side of Devin Nunes and the Republicans. And what is the side that Devin Nunes and the Republicans are on? They're the side that wants to release the memo, that wants to be more transparent. So, of course, that means that Adam Schiff is on the side that wants to be less transparent, that wants to hide things, that perhaps wants to cover up things. That is the side that Adam Schiff is on in this quote, in this allegedly politicized declassification campaign.
And for exactly that reason, we asked that both memoranda be vetted by the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Now, I gave you the headline from Fox News that said that the FBI had reviewed the memo. So the memo has been vetted. This is no longer a legitimate concern to have about this memo. Maybe the memo was vetted after Adam Schiff had this press conference, but if it had been vetted before going into the House Intelligence Committee meeting, then this is an illegitimate complaint, and this was just Adam Schiff trying to slow down the process, trying to stop the memo from being released. And again, it puts Schiff on the side of less government transparency, which I'm not trying to say that government transparency is always better than less government transparency, because there's certainly, in the case especially of national security, times where the government needs to be less transparent. But I am saying that being more transparent is a value that the American people cherishes in general. In general, Americans are more in favor of government transparency than they are of government secrecy. And by Adam Schiff being on the side of government secrecy, he's putting himself at odds with generally the American people. I just want to point that out there in very general terms. That's what's going on here.
Finally, I moved that if the majority was going to release their memoranda publicly, that they release the minority views as well, that they be released jointly. And the majority, on a party line basis, voted against both memoranda being released to the public.
I want to stop here. Now, I neglected to mention before we got started with these clips, this is being edited a little bit. I am skipping around. Please go watch these full videos. Make sure that I'm not taking anything out of context. But to Schiff's point, he says he wants there to be two memos released, the Republicans and the Democrats. And the way that, to put it in some modern terms, the narrative would be that the Republicans' memo is fake news and the Democrats' memo is the truth. As you're going to see when we get to Nancy Pelosi's video, that's exactly what she says about the things that the Republicans are trying to do. Now, I would have a question if I were to have the opportunity to ask Adam Schiff. I would ask him, would the Democrats not hold back a memo that they thought was contradictory to their own narrative? Would they not hold back a memo that hurt their own stance on the issues were they the party in power. And I could tell you that no matter what Adam Schiff says, the reality is the Democrats would do exactly that. If you were to flip the script and say the Democrats have a memo from the House Intelligence Committee that details abuses of a Republican president's FBI, the Democrats would do exactly what Devin Nunes in the House Intelligence Committee is doing right now. I don't want to be the one to say whether that's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that's the reality of the situation. As for the party line vote stuff, now, Adam, on a party line vote, let me just go to another story here for you. On a party line vote, the Democrats voted to block Devin Nunes' memo. Where is that line? I know it is in here somewhere. Oh, it's right there. Did I skip it? I know it's in here. Where is it? There it is. The vote was along party lines with all Democrats voting against it being releasing the memo. Now, so Devin Nunes has no problem voting along party lines for less government transparency. But for some reason, he has a problem with Republicans voting along party lines for more government transparency. Again, if I was a reporter in the crowd, I would have loved to ask Mr. Schiff more details about this.
We raised, of course, the transparently political objective behind this, which is to allow the majority to set a certain narrative for a week or so before they released a full statement of the facts from the minority.
I like how Adam Schiff just automatically assumes that what's in the Republican memo is lies and what's in our memo is truth. Now, it couldn't be that there's facts and possibly fiction in both memos. No. Ours is a full statement of facts, and theirs is either not a full statement of facts or just all lies. As Nancy Pelosi would put it, the whole thing is a lie. But to Adam Schiff's point, his overall point here about establishing narrative, I would have asked Schiff, would it not be the Democrats' policy as well to do exactly this, to give themselves time to establish narrative? I'm here to tell you, if both memos went out together, the narrative would be everything in the Republican memo is wrong and everything in the Democrat memo is truth. We have it's a policy of the majority to give themselves the advantage when it comes to crafting a narrative. Now, in the current media environment that we have, it can be very difficult for a Republican majority to craft their own narrative because of the way that the media works. So why shouldn't the Republican majority give themselves as much advantage as they can get a hold of when releasing this memo? Not saying whether or not this is the right thing to do, just saying that this is the reality of the political situation that we have. Now, going to move on to another column here before we go back to a video. I have here a transcript from CNN, I hope I have a transcript. I do. A conversation between one David Gergen, a former where is it? Come on now. Go to the place that I want. Yes, there we go. A former presidential advisor and the host of whatever news program this is. Now, David Gergen says this about the process of releasing the memo. He says, "I think we're seeing a breakdown of democracy. And I would like to point out that voters' representatives voting to do something is literally the definition of democracy. You know, democracy is a group of people casting votes to do something. And that's exactly what the House Intelligence Committee did today, is they voted, and the majority voted to release the memo. That's not a breakdown of democracy. That's democracy happening. When he says we've never had a situation in which the Congress has moved into a criminal investigation and turned it into a political circus, I would just like to point out to David Gergen that it was in fact not the Congress, but the executive branch of the government, that moved into an investigation and turned it into a political circus back in 2016, 2015, mostly 2016, when President Obama's FBI and DOJ decided, we have the text messages, we have the evidence that this is the case, decided before they had even interviewed the suspect that Hillary Rodham Clinton was innocent of all charges of criminal negligence in the handling of her email server. That is a political circus. I think it's very convenient that in David Gergen's opinion, there is no credibility to the Nunes memo unless an answering memo is released at the same time. I think that's highly convenient. I think I don't understand how that could be the case. It doesn't me making a statement about someone doesn't make it more or less credible whether or not they have the opportunity to respond. If I make a statement about a person and I have facts, I have evidence to support my statement, their statement is now irrelevant to the credibility of my statement. Something I assume is lost on David Gergen. The last thing, he goes back to Watergate. The left, whenever they go to talking about an issue like this, they automatically default to the worst things that we have emotional attachments to, and that is Nazis from Germany and Watergate. I think we're losing our attachment on Watergate because it's becoming so far back in the past. It's becoming, to my experience, less covered in schools, but that's still the number one page in the playbook when it comes to cover-ups. When Nixon was under investigation over the Watergate tapes, he offered to special counsel, "I'll give you summaries of what's in the tape, and that will be good enough." And the special counsel said, "Absolutely not." Now, I wonder why this didn't apply when Hillary Clinton said, "I will parse through my emails, and I will give you the emails that are relevant." I wondered why the FBI said that was absolutely not okay. I wonder why David Gergen seems to be totally unaware that what he is describing is the reality of an investigation that happened not to a Republican. Donald Trump has been all up front. Donald Trump has been totally cooperative with the special counsel investigation. It was Hillary Clinton that did not cooperate with the investigation into her own self, not Republicans. But David Gergen seems oblivious to that. Now let's move on. We're going to get into the most juicy and delicious of the video clips that we have for you today, and that is Nancy Pelosi in an interview with Chris Cuomo. A very rare, random act of journalism performed by Chris Cuomo in this interview. I was quite surprised, but let's get right into it.
Well, because unity is, of course, our goal. That's what we strive for the American people, bipartisanship, transparency in our activities, and to do something that is unifying rather than...
Now, I think it's funny that Nancy Pelosi, the person that's going to go on for the rest of this video to talk about less government transparency in this particular instance, would say in this moment that transparency is her goal. That just strikes me as ironic and hilarious.
About one thing or not. This is about the integrity and the safety and our national security.
That's what he says, too.
Wait, was that just pushback from Cuomo? Nancy Pelosi says, our hashtag resistance to the publishing of the memo is about the integrity of our national security. And Chris Cuomo says, well, that's what the Republicans are saying. How is what you're saying different from what the Republicans are saying? It seems like an interesting trend that Cuomo would continue to push back against Nancy Pelosi in this instance. But, I just wanted to say that's funny, that he's actually doing journalism here.
They have crossed from dangerously and recklessly dealing with intelligence to a cover-up of an investigation that they don't want the American...
Dangerous and reckless I suppose that means, remember, we looked at the headline, we looked at the story. The memo has been reviewed by FBI agents, and they have determined that that they can't point out any inaccuracies in the memo. And at the time that they did that review to look for inaccuracies, they did not deign it necessary to say, don't release this memo. So where does Nancy get off saying that this is dangerous and reckless?
Rebuttal to it by the Democrats. Now, the Democrats have said rightfully we shouldn't be putting anything out unless it has been reviewed and redacted by the intelligence, the appropriate.
But they say
agency.
they don't want the DOJ to look at it because they are part of their concerns about how things were done during the campaign.
The DOJ is only one part of the intelligence community. The intelligence community is vast. It's the CIA, the DNI,
What? First of all, did you catch her slur the word community? Maybe I should let me know in the comments if you're interested in this. I think I want to do a video where we talk about, because I've seen it in the headlines, and I've only talked about it one time, way back when we first started this channel. But Nancy Pelosi has been acting somewhat oddly recently. She's slurred words in many speeches. She's made many stumbles. She's totally forgotten words and phrases recently. And then she fumbles on, I assume she was trying to say DNI, and instead she said DNA. She fumbled on that one. And it's funny. She's going to fumble again here in a moment. But I know that Nancy Pelosi thinks that Donald Trump is not fit to be the president of the United States. But who watching this interview and catches those moments wouldn't wonder, is Nancy Pelosi fit to be my representative in the House of Representatives? It strikes me as ironic that the people that think Donald Trump is not fit to be the president still think that Nancy Pelosi is fit to represent them.
Necessary for other countries to share with us. Why would they put it at the mercy of Dennis Nunes?
Who's Dennis Nunes? Now, we just talked about her fumble on DNA. This is her second fumble. She says Dennis Nunes instead of Devin Nunes. What's going on in Nancy Pelosi's head, people?
Irresponsible. There isn't one person in the intelligence community recognizing the sacrifice that our men and women in the intelligence community make for our country's security that would say this is not reckless.
Now, I'm interrupting Chris Cuomo, but she said that there's not one person in the intelligence community that would not say that this is reckless. But here are two that got to read the memo and didn't say anything about it being reckless. And Chris Cuomo is about to provide us with another source who did not say anything about it being reckless. I might back up just a little bit to see if we can catch the full name of the guy.
For our country's security that would say this is not reckless.
Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, obviously, recently selected by President Trump. He got the memo. He could have come out and said, this is reckless, don't release it.
Let me just say this with all due respect. You really don't know what you're talking about right now.
Oh, snap. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Cuomo is clearly not doing his job. He was just reprimanded by Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House Minority Leader. You know, when you're a member of the media and you get reprimanded by a sitting Democrat, you are clearly not doing your job. Now, that's going to do it for this video. This is my first attempt, or this is going to be my first attempt at using the YouTube editor to try and clean up some of the silence and the transitions between these moments in this video. So I hope it came out all right. If it turns out badly, I'm probably not going to do it again, but that could mean less usage of video clips like these in the future. So let me know what you guys thought. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. Let me know in the comments whether you liked it or not. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because I'm doing videos every weekday this far, with only a few exceptions, and you won't want to miss a single one. I hope that this one doesn't come out late. I hope that I can that it'll post by 6 p.m. With the way that the YouTube editor has been before, it could take several hours for them to get this video worked on, and I think that it will be up before the end of the evening, and I hope that you'll get to see the finished product before 6. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, good night, and God bless.